All right, boys and girls, we're going to do a little order of operations review. This is something that we've already learned this year. One thing you might want to try to remember, boys and girls, is GEMDOS. Okay, GEMDOS, boys and girls, remember that means grouping. So that's your parentheses, your brackets, things like that. Exponents we don't really do in 5th grade, so then we have multiply or divide left to right, then add or subtract left to right. So when we look at this problem here, first thing we want to do is to see if we have any grouping symbols, and if you look, we see that we have these brackets here. We also, within the brackets, have these parentheses, so the first thing you're going to take care of is going to be those parentheses. And so 84 divided by 7, y'all know that of course is 12. And so everything else we're going to just kind of bring down. And if you notice, we still do have grouping symbols here. And the grouping symbols that we have in this case are the brackets with the 9 plus 12. And so right now, 9 plus 12, we know that that is 21. And so we're going to go ahead and write down 21. Notice I'm still keeping the brackets there, and I'm going to explain that in just a second. So boys and girls, we've solved everything inside the brackets, but you'll notice that we have a 4 on the outside of it. And if you remember back, when we have a number next to a grouping symbol, that is assigned to us that it is multiplication. So this really means 4 times 21. And 4 times 21, boys and girls, is 84. So we would go ahead and just underline that. And we're going to multiply that, and that is, of course, 84. So our final answer is going to be 84. And do remember, boys and girls, it does kind of make like a triangle. Okay? All right, and so that is our first review problem. So boys and girls, we have a second problem here for review. And remember, boys and girls, we do, with order of operations, we do have that acronym GEMDOS, which, just to remind you, that's grouping symbols like parentheses, brackets, braces, and so on. Exponents we don't do in 5th grade, so we'll kind of skip past that. You will see that in middle school, though. Then M and D mean multiply or divide left to right. And then last we end with add or subtract left to right. So let's go and get started here. The first thing that we want to notice is those big giant brackets there. And within those big giant brackets, you actually do have some parentheses. So we need to take care of that specific part of the problem first. Now, the first thing we're going to do right now, boys and girls, is we can tell that 48 divided by 4 is going to be 12. So that is now going to be 12. Then we keep our minus 3. It's going to stay in the brackets. We still have that 11 on the outside, and we still have that plus 1 outside over there. So our next step, according to GEMDOS, we still have grouping symbols. We have those brackets there. And 12 minus 3, boys and girls, that is 9. So the next part, boys and girls, if we go ahead, put our brackets there, we notice now we have an 11 next door to the brackets. And anytime you have a number next to brackets, that's multiplication. So what this means is 11 times 9 plus 1. So, of course, according to GEMDOS, we've got to multiply before we add. So 11 times 9, boys and girls, that's going to be 99. And then we keep our plus 1. And then the only thing that's left, of course, is our addition. And 99 plus 1 is 100. So our final answer is 100. And remember, we know that that does make a nice little triangle as it goes down. So our second example, our final answer is 100. All right, so for our third problem, boys and girls, we have this expression here, And so we're going to go ahead and try to solve this. So the first thing we want to do before we start anything is, again, remember GEMDOS, our Order of Operations acronym, and the G stands for grouping. So in this case, our grouping symbols that we see are in the middle of the problem. You'll notice that you see brackets as well as parentheses. But we have to do the parentheses part first because that's all the way inside the brackets. So that's where we're going to start. So I'm going to go ahead and underline that part of the problem. And boys and girls, we know that 18 plus 2 is 20. So then I'm going to go ahead and write the rest of this problem back out. So then that's going to be 3 plus bracket 10 times 20, close bracket, minus 8. Now, the next thing, according to GEMDOS, is that we still have to solve our grouping symbol. And that would be our brackets, where we have 10 times 20. So right here is what we're going to solve next. And 10 times 20, we know that, boys and girls, that's just going to be 200. So we're going to put our bracket with 200. And that's going to be 3 plus 200 minus 8. Now, there's really nothing left inside that bracket, so all this really is, I mean, we didn't even have to put those brackets there. We could just put 3 plus 200, and that is our next step, as add and subtract our left to right. So 3 plus 200, boys and girls, that is 203, and then we just put our minus 8. Of course, that is the last step of the problem. And 203 minus 8, just to kind of show you the work. Over here, 3 minus 8 we can't do. We cannot borrow from 0. So we go to the 2, borrow from that, make it a 1, and then the 0 becomes a 10. Now we do have to borrow from the 10 and make that a 9. And then this 3 is now going to become a 13. 13 minus 8, we know it's 5. And then 9 minus 0 is 9, and 1 minus 0 is 1. So our final answer is 195. All right? I hope this kind of jogs your memory and helps you remember what we learned earlier this year. And good luck on the problems below.